finish up some mingling. We're about to get started with our formal ceremonies here. Before we do, we want to share with you some of our culture as Métis people. The Métis Jiggers were originally formed in 2003 by the late Georgina Donald. Métis Jiggers are committed to the culture, preservation of Métis culture, music, and dance. They promote the traditions of music and dance by performing at various functions and events across Alberta, and we are just thrilled here to have them here with us today. Thank you.
Check, check, 1, 2. Willow Lake Métis Nation, how are we doing out there? Oh, come on, give it your all. It's a nice day. How you doing out there? If you had, I'm just kidding. Oh. All right, we're not gonna be doing any M&M here today, but we're gonna be doing some fine Métis dancing for y'all. Does that sound good? Alrighty, we're very thankful to have the band up here playing for us. And I just want to say the first dance we're gonna be doing is called the duck dance. So if you want to take a seat, grab your lunch and have a seat under the tent. You'll get prime real estate for viewing the show. All right, this one's called the duck dance. Hope y'all like it. Everybody, the reason it's taking so long is because Donnie has to detune his entire fiddle for this one song. So give him a round of applause, everybody. He did that in like 15 seconds.
All right, turn it on. Might help. There you go.
Hey, that's some good stuff, I'd say. All right, y'all enjoying the weather? I still have yet to get lunch myself, but that's my main goal after this, believe me. All right, so we're gonna keep the ball rolling. We're gonna play some more Métis music. We're gonna dance some more Métis dances. The next one we're gonna be doing is a nice traditional square dance tune, but I want to apologize. We don't have a full group of 8 here today. We have 6, so it's more of a triangle dance. Stay with us now. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's called the Elbow G.
Is that, you want to move that out of the way? Do you?
Huh? That's good. Any Big John type? Let's go. I gotta say, it's the cherry on top of the performance when we can both end at the exact same time. It's awesome. All right, so how you guys doing under the tent? Yeah, how you doing over there in the sun? Woo, wearing a full suit in the sun. You wild boy. I'm wearing a toque though. I guess I can't say much. You know, well, if you don't know me, my name is Luke Goche. Me and this dance group, we've been dancing together now for 17 years, since we were literally kids. I was talking to my cousin Joel, he's one of the dancers, and we were just driving into Fort Mac, and we used to always come up here and perform, all the time. And we used to stay at the Sawridge, we used to stay at the Quality Inn, we used to stay at the Radisson. And when you're a kid, that's a big deal. You get to travel with all your family and your friends. You pack into a van, you go into a new town, and then you get to dance, and then they give you $20 at the end of that. You're 9 years old. That's crazy. So I just wanted to just give you a little bit of history about ourselves, of course, right? So without further ado, we're going to go into another dance here. This one is called the Reel of Four. Who can tell how many dancers that dance has? 5, he says. No, it's so close. It's actually 4. It's called The Reel of 4 has 4 dancers. So, oh, look, it's me. I'm one of the dancers. Good stuff. Alrighty, I hope you guys like this one. And yeah, enjoy it. Okay. All right, while we go drink some water in the back, what do you say we get these fine musicians to play one more Métis tune, hey? That sound good? Alrighty, we'll be right back in like 2 minutes.
I'd like to take the moment right now to take a pause and ensure we start our day off properly. I'd like to welcome Elder Mary Mackenzie to share a prayer with us today.
Tanse, everybody. Great Spirit, Creator, our ancestors, we come to you with thanks and prayers. We thank you for this day. We thank you for all who can be here today. We thank you for keeping our community safe. We thank you for our lands and their safety. We thank you for Mother Earth and her sharing with us. We thank you for this day of the land recognition. We pray for knowledge. We pray for honesty. We pray for each other. We pray for Mother Earth. We pray for peace on earth. We thank you for our blessings. We thank you again for this beautiful day. Ukse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. I'd also like to start with the land acknowledgement today. Tensei, welcome to the Willow Lake Métis Nation celebration of Sohkastwâwin unveiling. Today we come together in original spirit of treaty. We learn from each other to celebrate and to foster relationships that mutually help us to thrive. We come together, some of us Métis, First Nations, other of us immigrants, while most of us generational settlers. But to all, important to the Willow Lake Métis Nation, fueling opportunity in our livelihoods. We are beyond thrilled that for the first time in the Willow Lake Métis Nation history, we welcome our friends on Willow Lake lands in person. We are blessed to meet within the ancestral homeland of the Métis people, the traditional territory of Treaty 8, including the Cree and Dene peoples. It is not new to acknowledge the land. It is a long-held tradition of Indigenous peoples to express gratitude for the way of the land provides, to reflect on our spiritual connection to each other. And with the land, to honor those that have gone before us, and thank those who welcome us in their traditional gathering places, enabling us to share the provision. We welcome you all here with open arms. I am grateful to be born and raised in this region, to have ties with family and community woven throughout this region, and I am proud to be Métis and to share our history with you all. As I'm sure you have all come to realize, not all education is based on truth, and we must begin with truth before reconciliation process can be possible. We only have to look at the history that took place in the heart of the Métis homeland in the Red River Valley. Louis Riel, a well-known Métis leader. We were taught that he committed treason by leading the rebellion and resistance, the advancement of the colonialized unity by the Crown. That narrative was later rewritten with historical truth. We know Riel today as a thinker, a leader, a facilitator between local settlers, the Métis, and First Nations. He wasn't the first to acknowledge the connection of land and people, but his bold actions stand today as a model to be followed. I am struck by the lesson of personal responsibility for today. He faced the expectations of his times, evaluating the things that looked and sound like advancements and their realities and their inevitabilities. He stared down the pressure to conform at the expense of inclusion and took personal risks to protect the land, lives, and livelihoods of the people who trusted him. Riel calls us to leadership, not only to acknowledge the land and to his people, but to take action with them, to look to our position of influence as business owners, as community leaders, and think critically upon ourselves. Am I willing to take responsibility? You can start simply by buying a book of an Indigenous author or recognizing the traditional names of the places you work. Move to understand the treaty commitments that are alive and still govern the places you frequent. Know the people that have called these lands home forever. Discover how incorporating Indigenous traditions enhance ways we can connect. Meet new partners here today in business and in friendship. At the Willow Lake Métis Nation, we take personal and corporate responsibility to our journey for reconciliation, and we all know that it starts with the truth. I'll get myself in order here because I'm sure the wind is going to blow all of my papers away and then you guys will be laughing. So just give me a minute. All right. If you followed me on LinkedIn, I know you've been I've been counting down the days to this week. I'm so thrilled that we're finally here to gather and celebrate. Welcome to this historic moment. As we work through our agenda today, we are telling a story of resilience, of doing things differently, of making bold moves, and of working towards a greater future for the Willow Lake Métis Nation. As I look into the audience today, I am glad to be sharing this story with friends, family, partners, teammates, and everybody here today. I'd like to acknowledge our special guests today. We have representation from our community of Anzac, the Anzac Family Community Support Services, local grade 5 and 6 class from the from Bill Woodward School, the Willow Lake Community Association, Wood Buffalo Economic Corporation, our energy producers, Synovus, CNOC, ConocoPhillips, Greenfire, Keyera, Meg Energy, Suncor, Conacher Oil, and I do apologize if I missed anybody else. CNRL, I do believe I saw somebody from CNRL. The Willow Lake Métis Group, Apex Well Servicing, Backwoods, Malloy, Skyway Canada. Thank you very much for able to put this stage here on behalf of the community. Steel River, and all of our partners at the Willow Lake Métis Group. Friends at financial institutions. Well, funny. We'll talk about that a little later, but that's a new term in Indigenous world to me. Really want to extend a gratitude and thanks to the folks at ATB and Excellus Capital Financial for being here today. AIOC, the Fort McKay Métis Group, the Fort McKay Métis Nation, Lakeland Community Association, Lethbridge Métis sends their regrets, the McMurray Métis, the Manitoba Métis. I'm very honored to share today with all of my Métis family. Government representatives, Government of Canada, Layla Goodrich, and staff, thank you very much for making today in person. RCMP, Martina Noski, Government of Alberta, Rick Wilson couldn't be here in person today, but we will be hearing a message from him today, and we do thank Darlene Beauvais for coming as well. RMWB, Mayor Sandy Bowman, Councillor Jane, thank you very much for your attendance. To all the Willow Lake Métis Nation citizens, thank you for sharing today with us. And at this time, I'd like to invite our local Member of Parliament, Layla Goodrich, to share the stage with me and say a few words.
Hello, everybody, and sorry for the delay. I didn't realize how long it would take to get up on stage. I'm Layla Goodrich. I'm your Member of Parliament for Fort McMurray Cold Lake, and it's truly so spectacular to be here. It's always a pleasure to be able to join with the Willow Lake Métis. I remember meeting with Justin, Stella, and their team a few years back, and them giving me a bit of their vision. And being here today and seeing their dream coming to life is so special. And so I just have a small token of appreciation. I've got a scroll here on behalf of the Government of Canada recognizing the work that they've done in getting this together. And so I just want to present this to Stella and to Justin on behalf of the entire Government of Canada, the sincere congratulations on bringing this dream to reality.
It's amazing. Thank you for that, Layla. What a great way to kick off our event here. Sohkastwâwin. It's a Cree term, the act of being resilient. The history of this land and this community speaks to exactly that name. Sohkastwâwin reinforces our self-governance model. The actions we take now to develop the resilience will change the course of our nation's future. The community will tell today not only about how the Willow Lake Métis Nation was able to acquire land, but what we plan to accomplish now that we no longer are a landless Métis. We have big dreams, big plans, and they're already in motion, thanks to partnerships and relationships with like-minded and value-driven people and organizations. Every story starts with the beginning, and there is no better person to tell the story of our nation than President Stella Lavallee. Stella is the elected president of the Willow Lake Métis Nation, a proud Métis woman. Stella is a traditional harvester, a land user, and for all her life, even before her first term as president in 2016, Stella has been committed to the development of the Métis rights and the Willow Lake Métis. Our community has gone unabated. Her work for our community has gone unabated, and she continues to be the calming leader for this great nation. Please welcome me today in joining Stella to the stage.
Thank you, Justin. So I'd like to start by thanking everyone who can join us today. To see such a representation of community, industry, government partners, neighbors, and more is a humbling sight to see. And I thank you for sharing this special moment with us here today. Humble, I believe, is a good way to describe not only my feelings, but the Willow Lake Métis Nation as a community. Humble to share today's historic announcement, humble in our recent success and partnership, and humble in our desire to make a difference for the Willow Lake Métis Nation, the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo, the province of Alberta, and Canada as a whole. We are humbled today because we've been humbled our entire existence. Our history connects us to kin to our neighboring First Nations and Métis communities of this region. We date back to a time before Canada was a country, a time when we as Indigenous people lived harmoniously throughout these lands, without category, without division, without difference. We just lived. From that point, the Métis history is well documented. The westward movement of Sir John A. Macdonald and the continued colonization of the Northwest, forever changing the balanced ecosystem we once shared as Indigenous people of this land. The Northwest resistance, the massacre at the Battle of Batoche in the dark period where our ancestors lived in hiding and had to denounce being Métis just to survive. These are some of the historic events and the harsh realities we had to endure as Métis people. In addition to these well-known historical events, and on a more local level, the Willow Lake Métis Nation has seen and lived the impacts of development of the Western world on our community. Over the years, we have watched the name of our home and the lake that provided us since time immemorial change and westernize. The community evolved around us, the landscape changed, and development progressed. All the while, the Willow Lake Métis Nations in the shadows without a voice or a true place to call home. We are humbled today because we acknowledge the past, and with that, we acknowledge the life our forefathers wanted for us versus the harsh realities of our endurement as Métis people. But most importantly, we're humble today because we stand in appreciation that we now live in a time of realization, a time of understanding, and a time of reconciliation. I only have to look out at a crowd today to realize that the times have changed. Never in my wildest dreams could I imagine such a turnout for our community. We as leaders may be humbled by the past, but we are excited for the future, and your attendance on this important day is a testament to the strong relationships we have formed, and should serve as an example of the amazing things that can be achieved when we just work together. Louis Riel once said, "My people will sleep for 100 years, but when they awake, it will be the artists who give them their spirits back." It may be longer than 100 years, but we are humbled to be just one of those many artists working to make a reality of what Louis Riel's vision was for the Métis people. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you here in attendance today and those who sent regards. It is working with you that we have been able to achieve such a historic milestone for the Willow Lake Métis Nation. Acknowledging our past is one of the most important things when considering our future. Although our past is written, our future is not. Today, we celebrate the first time on Willow Lake Métis Nation lands, and tomorrow an opportunity for a resilient community to secure the future for generations to come. Our vision, Sohkastwâwin. It means the act of being resilient. Sohkastwâwin provides a future ecosystem for our community to thrive and flourish, but most importantly, it provides a resilient Métis community with a home. Sohkastwâwin, the act of being resilient, a fitting word to describe Willow Lake Métis Nation, acknowledges our history and captures our unwritten future. Eco-bison ranch, community culture center, Mother Earth's garden, Métis housing, cultural education programs, net zero power generation are just some of the key aspects to our resilient ecosystem targeted to provide the Willow Lake Métis Nation with food, power, culture, and social security in an uncertain climate concerning future. That sounds like Sohkastwâwin to me. And again, I thank you for coming and sharing this day with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. I'd now like to turn our attention to the importance of partnerships. It is no secret that we could not be here today if it had not been for the collaboration and the willingness to work together by everybody here today. You're all invited here to celebrate our land acquisition, yes, but your attendance here and what made you come here today is much, much more than just the simple invitation that we provided. Well, maybe everyone except the media that we invited. I'm not even sure if they showed up, but I'm pretty sure everybody else here came for more than one just the reason of the invitation. Each and every one of you are here because you or your organization has built a relationship with the Willow Lake Métis Nation and have been integral to our success. Although yes, you needed an invitation in order to come, I do believe that we are all here because we recognize, honor, respect, and value the relationship which we created together. We believe the only way forward is together, Mama way in Cree. And together we can achieve the impossible. It is built upon this belief that the Willow Lake prides our recent success, not in what we have achieved, but in what the real value is created with the relationships, the bonds, and the partnerships we have formed throughout this journey, and we especially with you all here today. Can I get a round of applause for that? Told you it was going to happen. These relationships have been the backbone of our success and has provided this community with extreme confidence in the road to self-governance in more ways than I can ever begin to imagine or explain. To think that just 4 short years ago, the citizens of this grassroots historical Métis community made a difficult decision. One that was guided on our laurels and beliefs for a better community. The decision to pursue our own self-governance and create a model out of opportunity, a model to follow. Now that decision is not easy as it has left this community on our own to survive, to figure out a way, seemingly fitting as it is normally, that is the normal Métis way, but rather challenging due to the circumstances and without any specific support, acknowledgement from any government or parental Métis organization, we were, as we always have been, on our own to survive. Perhaps recognizing, though, that this time it may be different. I know for me it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, both personally and professionally. For the future was unknown and the risks of not succeeding, a scary thought when a community is at stake. In industry, there are calculated risks, measures, risk analysis, and informed data that drives decision making. I know firsthand the confidence one can have when their decisions are backed by process, structure, data, and calculated balance of risk by way of measuring severity and the probability of a potential outcome. And I can also share with you, this was not one of those kinds of decisions. This decision had few knowns, a whole lot of unknowns, and an amazing amount of belief in ourselves. In a future we did not know how industry was going to respond to our little community. We did not know how government was going to respond to our rights assertion, but we did know that for the Willow Lake Métis, it was what was needed to unite our community so that we can have a sustainable future, a bit of a leap of faith, as you will. There was one more thing we knew quite well throughout our journey, and that was we were not alone. Willow Lake had what I like to look at as a big brother community, a mentor, a collaborator, someone to collaborate, to share, and to challenge each other and to grow together, Mama Way. Willow Lake honors our relationship with the Fort McKay Métis Nation. We thank them for their support and guidance over the years. May our relationship be a shining example of what the mutual impact we can have on our communities when we are all open to working together. Mama Way. Thank you, President. So yes, there was a bit of a leap of faith, but a leap built on a strong foundation, a foundation of resilient community, a community strong in their laurels. Our core values grounded this community: integrity, identity, culture, sustainability. We believe in ourselves, and we knew that operating in transparently and accountable to those we engage with, or as we simply say, doing it right, we would enhance our path forward, and we would form the relationships necessary to successfully progress the Métis people of Willow Lake for future generations to come. Well, my friends, as President Lavallee mentioned in her speech, we're very humbled here today to share our story with you all. It has been quite a ride for the past years of Willow Lake Métis Nation. You all here have played a very important role along the way, and we thank you for being a part of the journey and sharing in our success. I often say it's a bit surreal to look back at what we've accomplished, but the reality it is, you're standing here to celebrate today the Willow Lake Métis Nation land acquisition. But more importantly, you're standing here today as proof in our belief, as proof that Mama Way, together we can accomplish the impossible. And then we are all just so humbled that each and every one of you and of our respective relationships to share this day with you all. And we are excited to share our special day. We know that for years, the Métis of the oil sands region have been neglected and ignored in consultation development due to technicalities in the regulation. I am happy that we now live in a world that we do not turn our heads from the realities of who the Indigenous peoples of this region are, and that our willingness and collaboration and that we are in a time of reconciliation. For the Willow Lake Métis Nation, it is our history that defines our existence, our rights as Indigenous peoples of Canada, our ability to stand in front of you today, built with proud sweat equity, and the optimism of a future that remains unwritten. As previously mentioned, we did not receive operational funding or any form of government, and such our growth, our capacity for our community lays solely on our community's ability to foster relationships and using those strong relationships to establish equitable partners, and with those equitable partners, creating opportunity for the Willow Lake Métis Nation citizens. It's through this process that the Willow Lake Métis Nation has been sustainable in implementing our community programming, post-secondary education programs, education, skills, employment and training, providing community events, cultural retention, engagement with industry, engagement with government, and support the larger community and region in general, and moreover, all around operate the Willow Lake Métis Nation. As a result of our partnerships, as a result of this, our partnerships are of the highest importance to the nation. We are honored to be able to have created many meaningful relationships with you all and that share these lands here today. I would like to take a moment to share my respect and humbleness for the many relationships, bonds, and partnerships the nation has made in order for us to be here today. And although I do cherish each and every one of our engagements, Willow Lake Métis Nation would like to take a moment to recognize the formal relationships we have established with neighboring energy developers like Suncor Energy, ConocoPhillips, Keyera Corporation, Enbridge, and Teck Resources. Our relationships have provided foundational capacity for the Willow Lake Nation and would not be here today if it had not been for your commitment to this community. I also recognize that this list is not exhaustive of all the energy producers in this region, and we appreciate having relations working collaboratively with you all. Give me a call if you want to get back on that list. All jokes aside, surely the contributions of all that literally fuels this community. As we all know, relationships typically form bonds, and sometimes those bonds form partnerships, as I've already mentioned. Nothing can ring more true than the growth and evolution of the relationship and now considered partner with Suncor Energy. A true example of the impact our neighbors can have on this community with the willingness to work together. Mama way. Last November in 2021, as many of us recall, Willow Lake, along with Suncor and 7 other regional Indigenous communities, created the Astizzi Partnership, which invested in the Northern Courier pipeline system, purchasing a 15% stake, and which in turn provided long-term generational revenue for the Willow Lake Métis Nation. It is thanks to this partnership that the Willow Lake Métis Nation has been able to achieve the impossible here today. At this time, I would like to invite Brianne Alacron, Manager of Indigenous and Community Relations at Suncor Energy, to share with us her perspective on the Astizzi Partnership. Thank you.
Hello everyone, it's great to see everyone here today. So many welcome supporters and partners. Thank you to Justin and Mary for sharing the opening prayer, and thank you, Justin, for a great land acknowledgement. It is an honor to be here today to celebrate such a historic milestone for the Willow Lake Métis Nation. And on behalf of Suncor, I'd like to congratulate the entire community. Less than 9 months ago, Suncor announced we would be partnering with 8 local Indigenous communities to jointly own an oil sands asset. Collectively, we took a 15% stake in the Northern Courier pipeline, which connects our Fort Hills oil sands operation to the East Tank Farm facility. The partnership was named Astizzi. Astizzi is a Cree word meaning thread made from sinew. Sinew is both strong and binding and embodies the foundation of the Astizzi partnership. We worked with these 8 communities, including the Willow Lake Métis Nation, for several years to find creative and sustainable opportunity to benefit from energy development. The partnership was formed to provide stable, structured, and long-term revenue for the communities involved for decades to come. As Justin mentioned, multi-generational revenue, and was a significant step forward in Suncor's journey of reconciliation. Today's announcement demonstrates the value and opportunities made possible through Astizzi and overall increased Indigenous involvement in energy projects. We've heard from communities that opportunities like this are critical to them, and it's equally important to us. As a longtime operator in the region, Suncor remains committed to developing strong, mutually beneficial relationships with Indigenous communities, and we believe that this partnership exemplifies the relationships we've built. Congratulations again to the Willow Lake Métis Nation. Thank you.
The partnership is named Astizzi. It's a Cree word. It means thread made from sinew. The partnership is named Astasy. It's a Cree word. It means thread made from sinew.
Very small and thin, but it provides a lot of strength.
Working together collaboratively as a team.
Yeah, unified, like holds things really, really tightly together.
And creating that strong bond between all 8 communities.
Though we all walk our own path, we find that our culture is sewn and woven together.
Sinew is strong.
So we like to think that we are like that thread.
We formed the Astasy Partnership, which brings together 3 First Nations and 5 Métis communities.
It's one of the first deals that we have made with all the Aboriginal parties involved on it.
Take part ownership of a pipeline.
The joint venture will own 15% in the pipelines that connect the Fort Hills project to the East Tank Farm, and is really the lifeline from Fort Hills to be able to access the market.
This is around ownership of the asset. So what this brings is a shift in the paradigm in and around Indigenous involvement in major energy projects.
This is an opportunity to transform the future, and we're excited to be a part of this joint venture.
These are changing moments for the First Nation.
And our ability to be a strong player at the table.
And having the ability of the Indigenous communities to be able to be the forefront of bringing this forward is what the future looks like. It's a rather powerful video. And thank you, Brianne, for your kind words. Relationships. Also very important to the Willow Lake Métis Nation, as you can all gather here today. So far, we focused our discussion on the relationship of energy producers, and I'd be remiss if I wouldn't recognize the Willow Lake Métis Group and its partners for all of the driving force behind the Willow Lake Métis Nation's growth and capacity. The Willow Lake Métis Group was founded and operates with the strong-willed, hard-working, and self-sufficient culture of the Métis people. Our mandate is become the bridge between reconciliation and community prosperity. And we believe we've built a new perspective on partnership in a time we need it most. We are continuing to work towards building capacity and strengthening our mandate. The Willow Lake Métis Group is working with the major industry players in our region to act and across Alberta to provide services and partnership at a new standard. We are thrilled to recognize the Willow Lake Métis Group of companies and our 10 partners: Backwoods Energy, GFL, Malloy Industrial Services, Apex Well Servicing, Keneal Engineering Inspection and NDT, Maviro Specialty Services, Spence Corrosion, Steel River Solutions, and the Fort Mackay Métis Group. And Skyway Canada, last but definitely most not least. Thank you for your commitment and continued contributions to the Willow Lake Métis Nation. But today's events are not just about relationships formed with industry or our business relationships. Yes, those are important relationships, but today is much, much more than just a recognition of the economical opportunity of this community. The Willow Lake Métis Nation take the very same approach of transparent and accountable engagement with all of its external stakeholders. As a result, we are excited to form a strong relationship with the government of Alberta as well. Personally, I am proud to live, to work in Alberta, Canada's economic driving force, and from my personal perspective, a province that is a leader in Indigenous inclusion, Métis inclusion. We know only in Alberta is there legislative recognized Métis settlements. We know only in Alberta is there a formal process to ensure consultation of grassroots Métis historic communities, such as the Willow Lake Métis Nation. And more specifically, only in Alberta is there a credible assertion process for the Métis. a process that does not ignore the realities of Indigenous demographic across this province. It embraces them. A province that acknowledges the historic Métis people and their respective territory. A process that ensures the Willow Lake Métis Nation is no longer a forgotten Métis community of Anzac, that we are resilient as a community and we can continue to do so. Now that's a lot of only in Alberta's, but the reality is that there is more. Because only in Alberta is there an organization dedicated to enabling Indigenous groups to invest in commercially viable developments in Alberta's natural resources, agriculture, telecommunications, transportation sectors, including related infrastructure, to foster economic prosperity and social improvements in Indigenous communities across Alberta. The Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, created by the Alberta government just 2 short years ago, was created with inclusion in mind. It was created so that the Métis and First Nations can harvest opportunities of development in our traditional territories. And most importantly, it was created to provide generational prosperity for Indigenous communities throughout Alberta. As Bennett Jones quoted in a blog over 2 years ago, after the AIOC was created, the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corp, a framework for meaningful ownership in economic reconciliation. Over 2 years ago, this framework in Alberta was the Alberta government's framework put forward in a desire to make a difference in our communities. I am proud today to stand here as living proof that the framework is a success. Meaningful ownership can provide prosperity. It has provided us with the prosperity of land and a sustainable future. I'm gonna pause there for a moment and just let that sink in. In fact, I'm just gonna reread that. It provides us with a prosperity of land and a sustainable future. To the government of Alberta, a $1 billion commitment towards Indigenous prosperity in Alberta. To the Willow Lake Métis Nation, a priceless act for a community's future. Establishing the AIOC truly is reconciliation in action, or reconciliation, as the minister would say if he was here with us today. I'm sure none of this would come as a surprise to the group here when I say that we'd all not be standing here today if it had not been for the Alberta government's openness for Indigenous inclusion and fair opportunity for the Métis. We are honored to work alongside the Alberta government in so many crucial topics to the Willow Lake Métis Nation, our region, and this province. For the first time in this Métis community's history, we have a valued two-way relationship with the Crown. Although Minister Wilson was not able to attend here in person, I would like to extend my respect and gratitude for all of his work and dedication to Indigenous peoples across Alberta. I'd like to take a moment here. The Minister, I do believe, would like to share some thoughts with us here today.
Tanashi, Willow Lake Métis Nation. I think you all know me. I'm Rick Wilson, Minister of Indigenous Relations. Oh, thank you so much for the invitation to join you to celebrate a historic milestone for your community. I'm so sorry I couldn't be with you, but I'm here at Innu Indigenous Art Park in Edmonton. It's right along the beautiful Saskatchewan River. I'm looking out over towards the Legislature building. Sometime when you're up here, I'll take you over. It's a great place to be. And we're in front of the sculpture by Métis artist Amy Malbu. I understand the word behind us in Cree syllabics means fire, esotu. It's a beautiful sculpture that they've done here. And this is a reminder of how vibrant our Indigenous cultures are. You folks at Willow Lake keep proving it to me. You're building a strong future, and I'm so happy that I could be such a small part of it and that the government of Alberta was able to help you in so many ways. From approving a grant to fight back against the Federal Impact Assessment Act that would choke your options for getting natural resources to overseas market, or backstopping a loan guarantee for your shared ownership of the Northern Courier Pipeline. We are all in, and we want to see a prosperous future for Willow Lake. Under the leadership of Stella and Justin and all of your entire council, the Willow Lake Métis Nation and the government of Alberta have forged a strong bond of friendship and shared goals. It's like what we did with the pipeline. I believe they called it ecstasy, working together, the sinew that binds us together. And that's the way I feel with you. I'm so excited to hear your plans for your new land acquisition, the act of being resilient. Sohkastwâwin, it fits so well. I'm so proud of everything that you've accomplished, and you aren't just looking at today, you're planning for generations to come. Congratulations on your new land and your long burning fire, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Merci, enjoy the day together.
We're very honored for realizing that the minister's time is very valuable, and he couldn't be here today for him to take the time to send that video message. Darlene, please extend his thanks from us to him. Now we all know, I think I'm done with that one. I knew coming up here with all these pages was going to be a nightmare. I apologize. We all know now that Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation was instrumental in providing the capacity for 8 Indigenous communities across Wood Buffalo to partner with Suncor to create Astisisi. But I would like to take a moment to acknowledge another partnership that was created through that process. One I would almost argue a little more important. And that is the partnership to the TOS-EP, Three Rivers Limited Partnership. Coming together of 8 Indigenous communities to one entity. The name represents 3 rivers, TOS-EP, Ta being Dene for the word 3, CP meaning Cree for the word river. A name representing the historical routes traveled across this region and the waters that connect all 8 communities together, the Christina, the Clearwater, and the Athabasca rivers. Although our communities have been connected for generations, this partnership brings us together in a way we have never have before. This partnership unites our communities in economic prosperity, strengthening capacities and positively impacting our local and regional economies. I believe the creation of the TOS-EP partnership was crucial, as it tightened our bonds as communities and made this region stronger in the process. With TOS-EP partnership in place and the support of the Alberta government by way of the AIOC and their financial loan guarantee, our communities were able to raise the capital required to invest alongside Suncor in the Northern Courier pipeline system, securing our community's economic prosperity for decades to come. I'd like to take a moment now to thank the AIOC for your commitment to Indigenous prosperity and truly making an impact. Indigenous communities raising capital. Wow. I mean, to think how far we've come as a society that we're now openly talking about Indigenous banking on a larger scale. Access to capital, an overall willingness to do more, stretching beyond the norms of today. I'm proud to be a leader in today's society. I'm proud to be included in discussions around change, inclusion, and willingness to, as we in the Willow Lake Métis Nation say, do it right. But we must acknowledge that even with everybody's willingness to do it right, there are challenges. It is not easy to do it right when we know our current systems and processes and structures do not lend themselves very easily to Indigenous inclusion. It takes time, takes commitment, and a willingness to learn each other's language so that we can forge a road together, Mama-way. Now, I'm not talking language as Michif, Cree, Dene, English, French. I'm talking business language. I'm talking cultural language, and I'm talking social language. I believe we all recognize that for years there have been language barriers between Indigenous communities and financial lending institutions. Even with the long-term stable revenue of the community from the Astisisi partnership, raising the capital to purchase our lands was still not easy. Funny, telling the banks, don't worry about it. We own a pipeline with Suncor, we're good for it. It just doesn't work. You still have to be able to talk the lingo. Who would have thought? But for real, after attempting a few traditional methods of engaging with the banks and literally not given the time of day, we knew that we had to change how we were speaking our language. I knew we lacked the ability for the nation to articulate our newly acquired capacity and to connect with the vision that the Willow Lake Métis Nation, and we needed help. The reality of it is, it takes partnerships in all aspects of the business to make this happen. Economic partnerships, banks changing mindsets, opening the doors to financial partnerships, and culturally appropriate capital advisory that's genuine desire to improve the Indigenous access to financial stability. For the Willow Lake Métis Nation, we found that help in Excelis Capital Advisory. Their genuine desire to achieve our nation's goals was clearly evident through our engagement, and they took the time to understand the nation. Was able to package our worth as a nation in a way financial institutions could appreciate. All the while maintaining tight timelines that we had in order to close, I'd like to take a moment to thank the team at Excelis, Scott, Paul, Ryan, and everybody there for helping the Willow Lake Métis Nation achieve this day today. I am pleased to invite to the stage Chief Executive Officer of the Excelis Capital Advisory, Paul Vicente, and to share some of his thoughts and insights in breaking down this language barrier between Indigenous communities and financial institutions. Thank you, Paul.
Sorry, as a settler of Italian heritage, I had to hug Justin. We must cherish our inheritance. We must preserve our nationality for the youth of our future. The story should be written down to pass on. 136 years ago, Louis Riel said that, and I want to believe that this day, this celebration today was exactly what he envisioned 136 years ago. So to President Stella, to Justin, to the entire Willow Lake community, congratulations. It's what an historic event. Justin asked me to speak on the barriers, the language barriers between Indigenous communities and financial institutions, and I'll speak to my experience in that, but I want to speak first to the opportunity before we speak about the barriers. The energy industry itself contributes about $175 billion annually to the coffers of Canada. That represents about 10% of the GDP of this country, principally right here. In the spring, the federal government introduced a $3.5 billion critical mineral strategy. The ultimate goal of the strategy is to create a domestic supply chain for electric vehicles to boost the economy and ultimately tackling greenhouse gas emissions at the same time. In Alberta, currently there's billions of dollars being spent on carbon sequestration and building out a massive new hydrogen strategy and industry. Across this country, there are solar farms and wind farms and battery storage facilities, and all these opportunities have one thing in common. They happen on and in traditional territories of Indigenous people. And as we drive towards net zero, as we drive to lower our carbon footprint, there is only one path to net zero 2050, and that's with partnerships with Indigenous communities. So how do we get there? What's the challenges? I've kind of written out four, and there's a few variations on each of them. We need fair access to capital for Indigenous communities. We need to support the capacity within those communities to transact. We need to actually educate institutional capital on what it means to have Indigenous partnerships. And we have to ensure that each of these investments, not only at the time of transaction, but over the life of the project, includes and maintains Indigenous principles and values throughout that lifestyle. And if we can get these four things done, we can close that gap. In terms of access to capital, I do want to give a shout out to James and Carol that are here from the AIOC. They've done a great job at buffeting that gap. But I was joking at a conference last week with their coworker Chris. I said my job is to actually put them out of business, because ultimately transactions have to be commercial. They must not rely on government support in order for asset growth to be meaningful to Indigenous communities and for asset growth in Indigenous communities to scale. So that's a challenge that we have to overcome. And we can do that. We can do that with the help of our industry partners who have bigger balance sheets. We can work on creative debt solutions to provide that. And I think we're ready to go there. We have to support the capacity within the communities themselves. No one can be good at everything. Justin's pretty good at a bunch of stuff, but he needs help. And so don't be afraid to hire experts. Those experts have to have an appreciation for the cultural realities of Indigenous communities, as well as speak the language of corporate finance and capital markets. I think the biggest one for me is we have to educate the institutional capital that we source. So the pension funds, the university endowments, the life codes that we get the money from have to understand what partnering with Indigenous communities are. And I'll speak to an example that on another project that we did. We knocked on the door, and it was a $1.5 billion power plant, and we knocked on the door of our equity partners and said, how would you like to partner with 6 Indigenous communities? And they went, well, maybe. They didn't know what it meant. And a year and a half later, they are pushing us to promote environmental stewardship, governance. We are funding 2 ICD programs within the project in order to promote Indigenous governance on the project. So there's an arc of the story here. And as we continue to educate the institutional capital on the value of Indigenous partnerships, that capital will come to the forefront. And then lastly, we have to make good on our mission. Again, I want to say not only at the time of the transaction, but through the arc of the project itself. In many of these projects, there's a 30-year life cycle, and we have to make sure that we hold our partners accountable to ensure that Indigenous values and principles are maintained. And the way that's done is twofold. 1, through Indigenous ownership. 2, through Indigenous governance. And if we can maintain those principles as we move forward and transact, I think we'll see more Indigenous ownership at scale in the near future. I really believe that we're in an inflection point where these two worlds are ready to come together, and industries and government are looking for a reason to say yes. And I think this acquisition of land is no finer example of that. So congratulations once again to the Willow Lake community. We're proud and honored to help out in getting it. And I want the commitment to come back here and celebrate when I know that the credible assertion process was going to be successful for this community. So look forward to that celebration next. Thank you. Excelis Capital Advisory was formed on the principle that assets are the building blocks of wealth, a ladder out of poverty and inequity, and a tenet for community self-determination. We evaluate, structure, and finance major asset opportunities on behalf of the communities while supporting them through the entire project lifecycle.
A lot of First Nations struggle with capacity. However, Excelis has proven that they can work with us and get the job done in a culturally sensitive way, a community-driven way, and also in a business manner.
They took the time to learn who we are, what our goals are, where we plan to go, and how they can support us in these various activities. They know the market and decision makers in the market to be able to advise the community on what the best options to move forward.
Relationships like this define our partnership. We rely upon them to turn talk into action for First Nations so that we can truly participate in an equitable way in the economy. We're proud to be partners.
While there's no singular path to economic reconciliation, building assets is fundamental to maintaining wealth. Our goal is to co-create innovative solutions based on shared value to generate the intergenerational impacts only possible through ownership efforts made today.
Thank you very much for your words, Paul, and appreciate you sharing your insight with us here today. What a great video that was, eh? What is Sohkastwâwin? I think you guys can all tell it to me now. I think we said it enough. But have we? It's the act of being resilient. I believe Sohkastwâwin defines this community to a T. From our resilient history along the shores of the Willow Lake to our future vision, a Métis-built ecosystem full of culture, food, and economy. We have shared with you today that I've said too many words already up here. Sohkastwâwin for the Willow Lake Métis Nation consists of key elements like the eco-bison ranch, the community culture center, Mother Earth's garden, Métis housing, local power generation, net zero emissions, climate resilience design, disaster mitigation, and tourism. But what does it all mean? To me, it looks like pretty lofty goals with a whole bunch of catchphrases thrown into it. Well, before we can answer the what question, I think we now need to take shape and answer the how this all came to be. Believe it or not, it all began with a small grant awarded to the Willow Lake Métis Nation back in 2019 by the Alberta government. To help the Willow Lake Métis Nation retain our cultural knowledge, bring awareness to growing concerns of climate change, our grant was to document our traditional foods and our medicines, how we harvest them from the ground, from the land, and provide for this community for generations, but also to assess our traditional foods and the security of that food in a climate future lens. I'll be honest, predictions threaten the very survival of the Willow Lake Métis Nation community. We knew we needed to do something, and working with our citizens, we developed a local early action plan for the community so that we can adapt to the changing future. Early action plan focused on two main categories: local food security and local power. For the food, we didn't have to look very long to recognize and attract our efforts on bison, the animal that our history of Métis people share a deep-rooted connection with, an animal that defined a people and imprinted a historical governance that we as Métis people continue to uphold today. Our ability to govern ourselves, rooted by traditional laws of the land, is well documented throughout history. We are, as the Cree called us, the Opitimiswak, the people who govern themselves. In times of adversity, the Métis did not react without consensus. They did not provoke, and they did not fight. They used governance to bring reason and to use the laws of the land to help guide their governance within our people, and with humility and respect, the sacred bond imprinted on a people, the buffalo. But our historic bonds with the buffalo were more than just lessons in governance. Our ability to orchestrate massive hunts with extreme coordination and precision provided the Métis people with the opportunity of their time, an opportunity of an economy. The Métis people of the 1700s used their connection with the buffalo and with deep respect used their ability to harvest and to feed and fuel the Western movement. They knew they had the ability to help the settlers and the First Nations, and they worked together, mum away, to support and continued life of these lands. The Métis' ability became the economic backbone of its time. So it's easy for us to relate and connect with the prospect of a bison ranch. As we researched the bison even further, we found an enlightening opportunity. We realized that our research through our research that the bison shared this very same connection with more than just the Métis. We realized the bison, whom once roamed what we call North America, shared a historical connection with all living things of this land. We realized that these lands that we live on once relied on the bison. Every living being, every organism, every plant, every vegetation, every insect at one point had a historical connection with the millions of bison that roamed the land, that are accountable for shaping the lands that we live on here today. And we realized, most importantly, that whether it be through direct or indirect contact with the bison, we realized that there was an ecosystem that we had not ever realized in today's society. And we realized that we did not realize that because of the loss and gap of the connection for generations. We know that after the 1870s, many ecosystems and animals, vegetations, birds, insects were impacted when the bison left the lands, when their populations plummeted. We realized that there was a resetting of our ecosystem that we currently live in here today, and we plan to exploit that connection between the bison and bring back what that brings to the land. The Willow Lake Métis Nation has been fortunate to work alongside a man who is no stranger to bison and the magical connection that they have on these lands, and has spent a lifetime observing and documenting it. It is his work that has awoken this community to the sacred connection of the bison and shared, and that once shared with this land. Connections lost due to the abundance of interaction, or the loss of interaction for over a century. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Wes Olson. After 10 years of a wildlife technician, followed by 32 years career in the National Park Warden, for most of his time was dedicated to bison management. Wes retired in 2012. For the past 10 years, he has been consulting and supporting many organizations, including Métis and First Nation communities, with knowledge and planning to acquire and manage their own herds. We would like to take a moment to thank Mr. Wes Olson for his lifetime achievements in bison management, for helping this community rekindle our sacred connection with the bison, and for being a part of this amazing new beginning for the Willow Lake Métis Nation. Thank you very much, Wes. Wes Olson's work at Elk Island National Park and his research in bison as the keystone species of North America, in a time that we've never been more concerned for our future resilience as a society, is something that needs to be highlighted. We need to share and amplify his observations. We need to pay attention to the sacred bonds the most resilient animal known to North America has on our own land. As an elder once told me, you can learn more in silence than you do in speech. Obviously, they were trying to tell me something. But I think that's very relevant for our future. We must listen, observe, understand. These are the next steps for the Willow Lake Métis Nation. To the point of all of this, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are here today to paint the future for the Willow Lake Métis Nation, so that much more than just land. It is much more than just the bison ranch. Today, with the dark foreshadow of our climate future predictions, the Willow Lake Métis Nation will do as we always have done: listen to the land. It's time. We intend to open our perspective on how we listen. We aim to develop a transdisciplinary approach to developing, monitoring, and revitalizing the land by enhancing these connections. But this time, we're going to use new tools to do our listening with. Earlier today, we discussed the importance of relationships, the importance of partnership as we move forward together. Mama way. Well, friends, as part of the Willow Lake Métis Nation story bears the same messaging. It wouldn't have been It would have been a challenge for us to unwind and understand the critical knowledge needed to come to so many of the conclusions on our own, or embark on such a dynamic approach to a community's future without some technical and relationship building support. Over the past 3 years, Willow Lake Métis Nation and the Resilience Institute have been on a collaborative journey towards climate resilience. Our journey, at its core, included foundational climate education and bridging our local community's knowledge with Western science to develop a community-based adaptation initiatives. For the Willow Lake Métis Nation, this process became Sohkastwâwin. And 3 years of work with the Resilience Institute to gain an understanding of the community has set the strong foundation for success and implementation. But it's not like we can just flip a switch and our results are achieved. In fact, 3 years of work is nothing compared to the commitment, implementation of Sohkastwâwin. It truly is. It is a forever commitment. We are ready for that challenge. Now, as I mentioned, research is going to be crucial for success of Sohkastwâwin, both at a local cultural level and at a scientific level. Research that Willow Lake and the Resilience Institute has undertaken is of no question significant, and something that required significant resources, as one can imagine. I am pleased to share with you here today another example of what we can achieve with our partners can align on the community's priorities and come together, Mamaway, to find solutions. Here to share with you on how they are making an impact towards Willow Lake Métis Nation Sohkastwâwin, I would like to welcome to the stage the CEO of Kiera Corporation, Dean Sedegushi.
Before I start, I have to say that I really enjoyed the music and the dancers earlier today, but I couldn't help but envisioning myself doing a face plant, trying that broom dance. So I'm glad there's other people that are way more agile than I am. First of all, I'm very pleased to be here to celebrate this historic milestone for the Métis Willow Lake Métis Nation. At Kiera, we value strong relationships in the communities that we operate. And on that front, we are very proud and honored with the partnership that we have with the Willow Lake Métis Nation. You've taught us the value of listening, observing, and learning as we move forward together. Our relationship has been nurtured by the work that we've done at our South Cheecham facility, which is just to the south of here. And we look forward to working together in the future. I'm very pleased to be here to share a $30,000 donation to fund the Resilience Institute to create a holistic land development plan and environmental monitoring strategies to support the nation's vision for this land. Yeah. When I present this check, it is an actual check, so please don't let it fly away today. Yeah. Please go on. Yeah.
This is actually for you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
I'll just take a quick moment to introduce the board here as they're coming up. Jessica Van E, Featherberg Jenner, Stella Lavallee, and Joyce Quintel.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. Listen, Justin and the board, I just have to say I'm incredibly inspired that the Willow Lake First Nation is fulfilling their vision, and we're proud to play a very, very small part of that. So congratulations again, and we wish you well in the future. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say thank you to Dean and to the Kira team for the contributions in making this reality. My name is Featherbrook Jenner, and I'm proud to be a board member of the Willow Lake Métis Nation. On behalf of the board, I want to share my thanks and appreciation for today. As we close, I want to take a moment and share how grateful I am. Grateful for our partners, our nation, and our community. Grateful for each of you. I'm so grateful for the relationships we have made and the partnerships that has led us here today. The Government of Alberta, the AIOC, Suncor, Excelis, the Resilience Institute, Kira, thank you for believing in Willow Lake Métis Nation and for working alongside us in creating a sustainable future for generations to come. At the beginning of our celebration, Justin reminded us of the Louis Riel's legacy, and I want to end on that the same way. We call to leadership. You are celebrating with us today not only the acknowledgement of this land and the Métis people, but you are taking action alongside us, and we thank you for that. Well, applause. The celebration's not over. Please stay and enjoy our dancers and band and mingle and get to know one another. Our speakers will be available for questioning as well, and you can find them to the left of the stage. Please continue to follow this journey. Visit our website at willowlakemétisnation.ca and send us an email directly if you like to be added to our monthly distribution list. Enjoy your afternoon, and I know we will gather soon again. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.